All right, aloha, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to today's April 24th, 2023 public hearing and regular board meeting for the Board of Water Supply. The public hearing will be held first, and then we will proceed to our regular meeting, although I will be taking one item out of order. Before I start, I'd like to go over some virtual meeting regulations required by law. Board members attending any board meeting remotely must be visible to the public to be considered present and meet forum guidelines. Board members participating remotely must also disclose their location and anyone present at their location during roll call. The public is allowed to attend the Board of Water Supply meeting here at our BWS Public Service Building located at 630 Beretania Street in Honolulu, Hawaii, 96843. You can also participate by interactive conference technology. A mask is not required to be worn. Let's take a moment to take a roll call of the board members. Madam Secretary, may I ask your assistance, please?
Vice Chair Capos-Bro.
Hi, I am present and working remotely from my home office where I'm alone with the door closed. Mahalo.
Board Member Max Sword.
Here.
Board Member Naleku Anthony.
Here.
Board Member Jonathan Kanashiro.
Here.
Board Member Edwin Sniffen. And Chair Brian Tayo.
Present. Board members who are calling or video conferencing in, please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. And Chair does recognize board member Ed Sniffen is now on screen. If you should have a question, comment, or wish to enter a motion or second a motion on an action item, make a comment, or you want to applaud something or someone, please unmute your microphone and identify yourself before continuing to speak. If you encounter technical issues during today's meeting, please use the chat to send a direct message to our support team. Their names are listed in a message to all participants. To open the chat window, please click or tap on the text bubble icon toolbar. In the room with us today, we have Deputy Manager Erwin Kawata.
Here.
Board Secretary Joy Cruz Achu.
Hi.
Manager Secretary Kimberly Kuaye. Information Specialist Stephen Nordstrom.
Here.
Joining us by Zoom are Mr. Jeff Lau and Ms. Moana Yost, both from the City and County Corporation Council Department, as well as Information Specialist Wayne Maria. We took testimony, and we are presently taking testimony for today's board meeting via written testimony, oral testimony, also by video or voice conference, and also in person. Written testimony, although it's obviously we're having the meeting now, you can still submit testimony at any time, even after today's meeting. You can submit them online at boardofwatersupply.com/testimony. Our fax number is 808-748-5079 for people who still have fax machines. You can also email them to board, BOARD, at hbws.org. Oral testimony will be accepted remotely and in person during the meeting. As mentioned, our address here at the Public Service Building where we are located is 630 South Beretania Street, Honolulu, Hawaii, 96843. We do ask, we would prefer that you pre-register, but if you have not, there is personnel downstairs to assist you. You can also testify remotely or by phone, or even video using the Zoom video conferencing platform. Please submit your request to board, BOARD, at hbws.org. You may also access it online on our website at boardofwatersupply, spelled out, .com/testimony. Zoom registration instructions as well as participant guidelines will be sent to the contact information provided. Once confirmed as registered, testifiers will receive an email containing the links and instructions to join the Zoom session. In-person testifiers should check in with building security and then with testimony staff located in the lobby. Testifiers may choose to testify here in the boardroom. You'll be escorted. And all testifiers today will have 2 minutes to state their position. A timekeeper will alert you when you have 1 minute and 30 seconds to wrap up your comments. And if I could ask assistance from Madam Secretary, if you could ring every 30 seconds after the deadline, that would be much appreciated. Meeting materials or the board packet as defined under HRS section 92-7.5 are accessible at our website, www.boardofwatersupply.com/board meetings. You may also view the meeting via live streaming on our website at www.boardofwatersupply.com/live. Before we start today, I'd like to state that this board is dedicated to providing safe, dependable, and affordable supply of water now and into the future. Before we go to the public hearing, which is the first item on the agenda today, I would like to take an item out of order. This is item number 3 under items requiring board action. It gives me pleasure today to ask for a motion for the adoption of resolution number 964/2023. This is the resolution of appreciation for ex officio board member Don Sefcik.
So moved. Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. All right, the resolution is adopted, and usually I would read the resolution into the record. But today, we do have board member Sefcik, our friend, board member Sefcik, present here today in the boardroom. Thank you very much for coming down. It's a little bittersweet. I think your words, we know you're moving on to better things, and but we'll really miss you. I really appreciated Don's professionalism, especially coming from an engineer standpoint. Here at the board, I think you're the only engineer, besides of course, I think you're the only engineer here. In addition to, Ed's also an engineer, so we really appreciate you guys, expertise in that field, which I obviously have very little knowledge about. But for Don, you contributed so much. I know you're very well respected among your colleagues, both here and at the city. And we'll miss you sorely. I know that the city and senior leadership will miss you sorely as well. And you're a great role model, having 2 teenage girls. You're a great role.
Voice.
No, I have 2 teenagers as someone with 2 teenage girls. You're a great role model for women in the STEM industry. So I hope much success. Anyone else wanna add anything?
Just a huge mahalo for your service. Thank you for the email today, and just wanted to say that you will be missed, and certainly good luck in your future endeavors. But it's a small enough town where I'm sure our paths will cross again. So
Absolutely.
mahalo again.
Yeah.
Okay, and we do have something for you, Don. It's not as cool as a street sign.
It's okay.
Street sign. But we do have a certificate for you, and maybe maybe you can help me lay here. How about, I propose that we, in addition to a certificate, for future, we get something really cool as, these kind of gifts that really define BWS. People like Don who serve, our agency, I don't know, maybe a used pipe, like a pipe.
Give me a section of pipe.
Yeah. We gotta engrave your name and that's it. This is good too.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Ray.
I think, let's see.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, Don, just when I'm getting used to saying your name.
I know, you're
I'm
doing
just
well.
getting to learn how to say your name and you're leaving, my goodness.
No, it's been an honor to serve on this board. What this board does, it's a tremendous responsibility and duty, and it wasn't taken lightly. I respect all of you for all of your insight and guidance, to making sure that the people of Oahu have safe drinking water, not only now, but into the future. So I appreciate what you do. It's a great undertaking, so I appreciate, all the stuff, the thought and the really, the foresight that you have to have in this role. So thank you guys for the opportunity. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and you get to keep your name like.
Thanks for the share.
Yeah, hey, that'd be kind of cool if you had something.
The mask.
Section of 22-inch mains.
Oh, what is that?
Yeah, at the police commission, we had, the badge, says police commission on it. We had the badge, encased in,
Thanks so much.
Plexiglass.
Thanks, Don.
well, yeah, it's molded, it's
Be strangers.
the badge and they pour, it's like a resin.
Oh, yeah.
Like a resin.
Yeah.
About-
Thank you.
A big round of applause. Good luck.
Maybe a gold faucet or something and a.
Okay, let's move to the regular agenda, and the first thing we have here is a public hearing.
Yeah.
And Honolulu Board of Water Supplies public hearing was published in the Thursday, April 13, 2023 Star Advertisement. The purpose of this public hearing is to allow the public the opportunity to testify on the proposed amendment to the schedule of rates and charges for the furnishing of water and water service for fiscal years 2019 to 2023. Effective September 10, 2018 through June 30th, 2023, for the Board of Water Supply to remain in effect until superseded. I believe all of you have a copy of the public hearing. And so at this time, I'd like to introduce our Deputy Manager, Erwin Kawata, to give a brief overview of the proposed amendment that we'll be discussing. If not, I can just read it.
I can do it.
Okay, go ahead.
Should I go?
Oh, also, Chair recognizes, Chair recognizes Ms. Rilin Nakabayashi to present the proposal.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. This is for a public hearing to discuss the extension of the schedule of rates and charges for the furnishing of water and water service. As Chair mentioned, the notice of public hearing was published on April 13th, 2023. And pursuant to the revised charter of the City and County of Honolulu, Section 7-110, the board shall hold public hearings prior to fixing and adjusting rates and prior to the adoption of the budget. So here we are. Okay, so our current rate schedule is only authorized through June 30th of 2023, which is the end of fiscal year 23. Board action is required to extend these rates past June 30th of 2023. This was the resolution adopted back in 2018, Reso 889. So as you can see from like the stated purpose and title of the reso, it clearly defined that these rates would become effective on September 18th and run only through June 30th of 2023. So the resolution that we'll be taking up in the regular meeting is Resolution 963, 2023, which will adopt a revision to the schedule of rates and charges for fiscal years 19 through 23, which became effective on September 10th of 2018 through June 30th to remain in effect until superseded. We are, besides extending the rate, we are leaving the main rate features in place. So all the customer class definitions for potable water, non-potable water will all remain the same. And what the rate schedule that the board adopted back in 2018 remains, and the rates that became effective on July 1st, 2022 will remain in place until superseded. And this goes for all of the various rates and quantity charges. This goes as well for the standby charge. And the standby charge is the charge negotiated by the manager with each private water system contracting for interconnection service. The July 1st, 2022 rate shall carry on. The rates adopted back in 2018 also had 2 adjustment provisions that will remain in place with no change. So there's a power cost adjustment for when the cost of power or electricity exceeds the amount used in calculating the schedule of rates and charges. Quantity charges may be increased by 1 cent per 1,000 gallons for every $500,000 of incremental power cost overage in the following fiscal year. And the other adjustment provision that remains in place with no change is environmental regulations compliance fee adjustments. There were 2 waivers that were in the rate schedule adopted in 2018. The first of which was the waiver of water systems facilities charges for qualified affordable and homeless dwelling units. This will remain in place. So rather than this part of the rate schedule where it said the provision shall expire on June 30th, 2020, that it will actually be removed and will say upon the adoption of a subsequent revision to the schedule of rates and charges for the furnishing of water and water service unless provided for specifically in said schedule. There was also the waiver of meter charges for residential fire sprinkler retrofits. This will also remain in place. So similar to the waiver of water systems facilities charges, we propose deleting that the waiver provision shall expire on June 30th and inserting upon the adoption of a subsequent revision. So to date, the Board of Water Supply, just a little bit of background on those 2 waivers. We recognize the value, and to date, the water systems facilities charge waiver waived costs over about $2.16 million in fees waived, and subsidized the creation of about 1,635 units. For the fire sprinkler retrofits, we waived costs of $13,426 for 1 project. These are just some of the projects that benefited from the waivers in our rate schedule. Westlock Modular Housing, Hale Makana O'Malley, Kokua Elderly Housing, and Kauhale Kamaili. And this, for a fire sprinkler project, it was the Marco Polo Condo Association or condo units that received the waiver of $13,426. I believe Joe did this report in January, but this is kind of the schedule that we're on to adopt our new rate schedule. Public outreach has begun. We had our stakeholder advisory group meeting last week. And we will continue our outreach on the rates, and we hope that this board will adopt the rates in the September-October timeframe for those rates to become effective on January 2024. But with this schedule, this is why we're requesting the extension of the rate schedule from 2018, as is to carry us from that period that falls after June 30th of 2023. until these new rates become effective in January 2024. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Rick. Before I open it up, I wanted to ask if maybe next meeting, can we get some information about fuel surcharge? Whether that's been considered and are we able to do it and what other utilities have been doing? Next meeting.
Definitely.
Members, any questions? No questions? If not, I think this is a public hearing, so Madam Secretary, is there any testimony received for this
No,
item?
no.
And is anyone on the line or waiting downstairs to testify?
No.
Okay, let the record reflect that there is no testimony on this item. And unless there are questions, I'm going to close the public hearing. All right, the public hearing is hereby closed. We are now in our regular meeting. We have 4 items on our agenda requiring board action. Okay, item number 1, requiring board action, is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held on March 28, 2023. The draft has been circulated. I believe everyone has a copy. Madam Secretary, is there any testifiers or testimony received on this item? Okay, let the record reflect there's no testimonies. Members, are there any changes, corrections, or amendments to the minutes? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting held on March 28, 2022?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
those, thank you. All those opposed say nay. All right, motion passes. Minutes are approved for March 28, 2023. Item number 2, this is the adoption of resolution 963, 2023, adopting revisions to the schedule of rates and charges for the furnishing of water and water service for fiscal years 2019 to 2023, effective September 10th, 2018 through June 30th, 2023, for the Board of Water Supply to remain in effect until superseded, pending our upcoming rate study. Madam Chair, any testimony on this item? Thank you. And with no testimony, do I have a motion to adopt resolution number 963, 2023?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah. You probably voted on something like this last meeting,
I think we voted to approve the public hearing.
the proof of, okay.
Yeah.
All right,
This is the actual, we're basically gonna keep water rates
right, until we decide to change it.
until the new rate.
Thank you.
I would like to note for the record, that, we have incurred fuel tremendous increase in fuel costs, I believe, and we'll talk about it more next meeting, but I believe about 30%. Other utilities have passed that cost on. We have not. And so we'll talk about it more next meeting to see, at least just to get a sense of, first of all, whether we can adopt a fuel surcharge, and whether we should adopt a fuel surcharge.
On that point, Mr. Chair, in the presentation, you had a power cost adjustment. Is that not part of the fuel adjustment?
Yes, the power cost adjustment is that, I guess, pass through that we could turn on, and then it would increase the quantity charge, for the customers.
So we can do it now.
We can do it now. We've had that rate feature available to us. And I can prepare a presentation for the board, for next month, but we have not to date, exercised that adjustment feature. But I'll be prepared to do the presentation to just show you what the calculations would have been. And then, to date, we haven't though.
May I ask for?
Well, manager's decision, to, I guess, not increase the burden on our ratepayers at a time, the past 3 years we recognize have been hard, not only for us, but for the public in general, coming out of COVID. I mean, being in COVID, coming out of COVID, dealing with the rising cost of everything in an inflation environment. Manager made a decision to withhold, and we tightened our belts to absorb the cost.
Okay, so at the next meeting, then the chair has requested, you prepare that. In the meantime, can we?
I will double check with, I guess, the Waterworks controller and then Corporation Counsel, but I do believe it is something that we calculate it at the end of every fiscal year. And it's a decision on to apply it or not apply it. So I don't think that there's like it must be done on July 1st. It's just, we can turn it on or not turn it on.
Okay, well, I guess the follow-up question for that would be, can you do that on a monthly, or it has to do it on a yearly basis? Fiscal year basis.
Yeah, I think the way that sorry, they taught me how to share now. Let me share my screen.
That's okay. I mean, at the next time when you count the calculations, you can kind of walk us through the procedure on doing that.
Okay. Oh, is it sharing?
Vice Chair Sproul, did you have a
Wait,
question?
stop sharing.
I did, but I can, I'm happy to wait until, Ray, were you gonna share or are you?
Sorry, I was going to try to share, but maybe Stephen, I can't tell which window to share. The power cost adjustment is, it's supposed to be calculated at the close of the fiscal year. You just take your total cost spent and then you look at how much we used in the schedule of, coming up with the schedule. And then you calculate how many cents that would be, whether it's like 3 cents, 5 cents more, and you apply it to the next year. It's kind of a catch-up charge. I don't believe it says, I think the way it reads in the rate schedule is that it is a calculation of your entire year though. So I don't think it's like a rolling thing that we can do every month, because when we set the rates, we did a study of like annual costs.
Okay, yeah, I just need to know. Then when you
Yep.
give us a report next time.
Yeah, sorry, we put you on the spot.
No.
She likes to be on the spot.
Oh, yeah, I'm here all afternoon. Call me anytime.
Vice Chair Sproul? Or Kapua, you have?
Yeah, thank you for that. And thank you, Ray. I just wanted to, I was just gonna touch on some of the issues that you've already covered. I think, as you've already explained, I think a significant concern for management, at least for me as a board member, is kind of looking at, given how well we've done, taking into consideration the impacts, of water sort of as a basic human right, and understanding the impacts of those in our community who are kind of least able to afford this essential service. And I think that was a significant driver. And then just to emphasize for board members sort of how complicated the rate survey and the rate setting is, it took us a long time to kind of to both go through the rate survey and then decide and settle on the rates. And I think if we were, whatever we decide on the energy surcharge, I do believe it's a one-time thing, because just given how complicated it is for the folks in billing who already get enough hassles, I think we do want to try to make it as straightforward as possible. So I look forward to your clarifications at the next meeting, Ray, to help us sort of decide what those amounts would be, if any, and then I think we can make a decision as a board as to, you know, whether or not we need to pass those on, or what that looks like kind of in the greater portfolio of BWS, and whether we're still able to absorb some of that impact without passing it on to our ratepayers.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? Okay, if not, then I'm gonna call for the question unless there's further discussion, or actually, Madam Secretary, roll call vote, please. And this is for resolution number 963, 2023, basically to keep the water rates the same until superseded.
Thank you, Chair. Vice Chair Prospero,
Aye.
Board Member Max Sword,
Aye.
Board Member Nalehu Anthony,
Aye.
Board Member Jonathan Kaneshiro.
Aye.
Board Member Edwin Sniffen,
Aye.
and Chair Brian Zaya.
Aye.
Chair motion passes with 6 ayes.
Thank you. Let the record so reflect. All right, we'll move on to the next item here, which is authorizing a public hearing to consider the proposed fiscal year 2023-2024 operating and capital improvement program budget. Chair recognizes Ms. Ridley Nakabayashi.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Okay, so we're requesting that the board authorize a public hearing at 2 p.m. on Monday, May 22nd, to consider the resolution to adopt both our operating and capital improvement program budgets for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2023 and ending on June 30th, 2024. We've got a budget workshop scheduled Monday, May 8th at 2 p.m. here in the Public Service Building boardroom. Attached to the board letter is our proposed notice of public hearing. Again, just giving the details, date, time, location in the beginning, and also going through the means by which people can provide public testimony. The same reminders that public testimony will be limited to 2 minutes. Materials will be available for inspection online.
Okay, members, any questions? All right, hearing none. May I have a motion to authorize this public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of authorizing a public hearing to consider the proposed fiscal year 2023-2024 operating and CIP budgets, please say aye.
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 Is there, all those who oppose, please say nay. All right, let the record reflect that the motion passes unanimously. We'll move on now to the items for information. First is an update on the Board of Water Supply's response to the potential impacts of the Red Hill fuel contamination. Chair recognizes Ms. Joyce Lin and Deputy Manager Erwin So.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Chair, and board members. I will be providing an update on Red Hill and the Board of Water Supply's recent actions and responses. Currently, 104 million gallons of fuel remains inside the 20 fuel tanks that sit right above our drinking water aquifer at the Red Hill fuel facility. It is our goal to see that the tanks defueled and the facility closed as soon as possible and as safe as possible. So at the beginning of this month, a defueling dashboard was published on the Joint Task Force Red Hill website. The dashboard provides an overview of the Navy's progress in their defueling plan. there is a 3-month look ahead of action items, and it shows how many repairs have been completed to date. So this is the dashboard. As of April 12, the dashboard has been updated following the publication of this PowerPoint. Currently, 174 of the 253 DoD repairs are completed. There will also be a defueling open house on May 23rd and May 24th at the Kehihi Lagoon Memorial Park from 4 to 7. So regarding the closure of the Red Hill facility, the Navy's proposed method of closure is closure in place, which is alternative 1 here, according to the closure plan. The tanks would simply be defueled, cleaned, and then closed in place. The Nakupuna companies have been contracted by the Navy to solicit public inputs on non-fuel reuse ideas, which is alternative number 2. Their findings will be put together in a closure plan supplemental 2 that is planned to be released in May of this year. To our knowledge, the closure of the Red Hill facility is still tentatively August 2027. The Board of Water Supply's preferred closure method is alternative 4, which is removal of the steel tank liner, clean the areas outside of the steel liner, and then fill with inert materials. Conclusive data to prove that the contamination from the Red Hill releases would not reach our drinking water sources. Our Halava Shaft, Aya wells, and Halava wells will remain shut down. So in planning for source recovery and water system improvements, we are actively seeking diverse funding options. So federally, in addition to the ARPA funding, we submitted 3 requests through our congressional delegations totaling $15.1 million. Our 3 requests included 30 letters of support. Big thank you to our Governor Green, Mayor Blangiardi, and all that submitted the letters of support. We are also seeking funding through the Hawaii State Legislature, House Bill 1511 and House Bill 300. And we are also seeking low interest loan programs. On April 13, Mr. Ernest Lau, Mr. Erwin Kawata, and I attended the Red Hill Remediation Roundtable meeting. We met with representatives from the Environmental Protection Agency, Department of Health, the Navy, and the USGS agency. Some of the highlights from our meeting included the following. EPA is in development of a groundwater sampling mapping app. It is planned to go live on their website on June 1st. The application is a type of interactive dashboard where the users can review sampling data from the Navy's monitoring wells through a visual map. It will have some filtering capabilities to narrow down your searches. We were informed that the AFFF release investigation report is still under review, and it is subject to publication soon. EPA and DOH are also planning a series of webinars to provide the public updates and new information. EPA and Department of Health provided some updates on the Navy drinking water distribution systems recovery plan, which is currently in stage 5, the long-term monitoring. NAFAC Hawaii showcased the new interactive sampling result map, which I will go over a little more in the next couple of slides. The recordings and presentation materials from this webinar, also past and future sessions, will be available on their webinar page, series website. So if you missed the live session or you couldn't attend a webinar, you can visit their website in the coming week for information. So here are some slides and information from the webinar. This is an overview of the Navy's drinking water distribution system recovery plan, stages 1 through 4, so which included the initial flushing of the system of the military homes, collecting water samples, to now in the stage 5 long-term monitoring. Details of the long-term monitoring plan can be found online. It was executed last year, July 19th. So part of the long-term monitoring plan, it's a 2-year plan broken down into 7 periods, and it involves collecting water samples throughout the 19 zones of the military housing. The goal is to collect 7,800 samples NAFAC Hawaii, or Naval Facility Engineering Systems Command, which oversees the operation of the Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam and Military Housing's drinking water system, reported 0 JP5 detections so far. NAFAC Hawaii also launched an interactive map to locate these sample results. So rather than reading through the list of PDF files, you can now go on to jbphh/safewaters.org, which is on the bottom of this page, or the QR code. On launch, you'll see this website on the left here. It's highlighted here. You can click on a small little arrow on the left side, drinking water systems. You can click over here. And through there, you can select view and go to click the view interactive result map, actually. And then you will arrive at this drinking water dashboard. You can refine the data searches by different zones on the left here. Your address, an analyte that was sampled or screened, and then the screening detections, whether it was in exceedance, not in exceedance, no detection, things like that. So this is helpful in providing a summary and a snapshot of homes and areas that have been sampled and what their sampling results are. Also, that was presented in the webinar. This is a slide from Dr. Roger Brewer's presentation, which he briefly mentioned his field study. His results are anticipated sometime in May or June of this year. Some upcoming events that are on our calendar. Tomorrow, we are meeting with Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Energy Installations and Environment, Ms. Meredith Berger. We have the Fuel Tank Advisory Committee meetings in June. This upcoming one will have a new format. There is an open house scheduled on Monday, June 5th at the Mauna Lua High School. Cafeteria, the time is to be determined. Then on Tuesday, June 6th is the actual FTAC meeting, which will also take place at Mauna Lua High School. And later in June, we are scheduled to meet with the 3 Navy admirals for updates. And this concludes my portion of the Red Hill updates. Next, we have our Deputy Manager, Mr. Erwin Kwata, to provide an update on PFAS.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and members. I'd like to give or share with you some recent results that we've had for something called per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or abbreviated PFAS, or most widely known as PFAS. Those detections were at our Halava, Mauna Lua, and Waipio Heights wells. Also, I'm going to talk a little bit about some investigations or PFAS investigations that are going on at various Department of Defense installations on island, and including EPA's recently proposed standards on PFAS. So this table shows the wells and the types of PFAS chemicals that we've detected. As you can see, they vary widely in terms of the types of PFAS chemicals and the amounts. The amounts range anywhere from 2 to about 2.8 parts per trillion. It's right near the detection limit. Also, the table shows current EPA proposed standards and how they compare to that, and previously health advisories that was issued by the agency, as well as the Department of Health's Environmental Action Limits, or EALs. Really, when you take a look and compare all of these different proposals against what we're finding, these levels currently show that the water still remains to be safe to drink at its present level. These are the 2 locations of our Halava wells and our Mauna Lua wells in relation to the Red Hill fuel tanks shown there in the black dots. These are among the 5 wells that we've been monitoring since 2014 for petroleum contamination. And more recently, after the Navy experienced a release of concentrated AFFF foam at the Red Hill facility, we began testing at our Halava wells and Mauna Lua wells. Also, 2 Mauna Lua wells is also close to Triple Army Medical Center, as well as the Fort Shafter facility. These 2 DOD installations are currently undergoing PFAS site investigations as directed by the Secretary of Defense. Our Waipio Heights well is located in the Waipio Crestview area, close to the Patsy Mink Park. Also is within proximity to a little over a mile from the Hawaii Army National Guard training facility located in the Pearl City Industrial Park. This particular facility is also undergoing PFAS investigations, actually found low levels of PFASs and even high levels of PFAS in soil and groundwater samples on that site. We do have a number of wells that are in close proximity to this particular installation, as well as the Navy's Wyalba Shaft to the northeast. This is a kind of close-up look at this particular facility. It's actually a training facility and maintenance type of facility. The dots on that particular map to the right shows the different locations in which PFAS was actually used in the past, as well as where these samples are being collected. This graphic shows some of the levels that were detected of the different types of PFAS in different, in this case, groundwater samples. And the table, if you compare what's being found, in some cases as high as 1,100 parts per trillion, really exceeds the Environmental Protection Agency's screening level, or the amount that really now requires additional study and investigation on this particular site. This is a list of all of the facilities in Hawaii, statewide, that are currently undergoing PFAS investigations. This work is really was ordered by the Secretary of Defense almost 3 years ago, and a number of them are undergoing either preliminary assessment or site investigation. Either it's finished, or a few of them are undergoing the remedial investigation, meaning that it requires additional study to try to mitigate what's being found at that location. This map shows the location of these different DoD facilities in relation to two things. First, the pink area along the coast, that's our Caprock area. And of course, the area inland to that, or Mauka towards the inland, is the what we call the no-pass zone, or the drinking water aquifer. So you can see there's a number of them that are located directly over the potable water aquifer, including the Red Hill facility itself. PFAS was actually, was used since the 1940s to make different kinds of consumer industrial products to resist water, heat, moisture, heat, and stains. There are many different types of PFAS as shown in the graphic to the right of the screen. It's known to be very water soluble, can leach into groundwater, and because of its chemical structure and the type of carbon to fluorine bond, that's what makes this particular chemical very persistent in the environment and difficult to break down. It's also been known to cause some potential adverse health effects. And so in response, the regulatory agencies are starting to propose some standards. This is the standards that EPA most recently proposed. There are two types. First of all, for the first two lines, PFOA and PFOS, the agency is proposing a maximum contaminant limit, or the most you can have in drinking water, at 4 nanograms per liter, or parts per trillion. And then the remaining 4 chemicals, it's really expressed as a hazard index. In this particular case, the agency is regulating this as a group, because they're commonly found as mixtures in the water. And the hazard index is calculated based on how much you find in the water, mathematically compare that to what the agency deems as acceptable. And if that mathematical ratio is less than 1, then the amount present is compliant with the particular standard. In each of these cases, the maximum contaminant limit is really the amount or the most that's allowed in drinking water. It's based on a goal that where you would like to be, or where the agency would like to move towards, but really the ability to move there is based on your ability, technology, and your ability to measure and to remove it. And that amount is still compliant or safe for public health, and that's what is called the maximum contaminant limit. So again, EPA has proposed that hazard index of 1 for those 4 different types of PFAS chemicals. Next steps, right now, the agency is in a 60-day comment period that ends on May 30th. At the end of that time, the agency will review all the comments and make the appropriate, or take the appropriate action to finalize the maximum contaminant limit, currently scheduled or estimated to occur at the end of this year. In the meantime, there is a regulatory requirement to conduct PFAS testing that we actually started in 2020. And we did that annually prior to the regulation that started in January of this year. So we have some historical data on the amounts of PFAS in our sources. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Members?
Two quick questions. From
Yes, sir.
How we compete with the monitoring wells that we're proposing in Honolulu Valley?
The monitoring continues, so we
No,
continue.
we have those operating already. So-
Those are all operating. So everything you see on the screen, all of those are currently operating, except for Halava Wells. We shut that well off. But all the others, Waipio Heights and Mauna Loa wells are currently.
But the two monitoring wells that we authorized a couple of years ago, are we complete with those?
No, we're gonna install those scheduled for next year.
Okay, no. My second question is that, do we have any wells up by the Korea Field Station?
Not where the Kunia Village is, down by the Royal Kunia subdivision area or community. We do have wells there.
They found some,
We haven't found anything there yet.
no, up in the.
Up in the Kunia Village, yes. Yes, they have found
We're monitoring downstream, though.
our wells,
Yeah.
correct.
Thank you. So,
I don't know if this is a question for Joyce. This is part of your presentation, but maybe Erwin, you can take a swing. You know, going back to their new drinking water dashboard, that's at like the household level, right? So have you seen them turn anything around with respect to monitoring of just the Red Hill site? Or do you know if that's in?
Yeah, no, I haven't seen anything as far as the wells itself. That's something that we're continuing to ask.
Yeah.
The EPA for and Department of Health.
Okay, that's part of that EPA conversation that's coming up.
Correct.
Okay. Looking down the road at this, it seems to be like every meeting that PFAS conversation gets maybe a little more tense and a little larger.
Mhm.
You know, if you had your crystal ball, what would you want to see from the monitoring standpoint for BWS as we start to look at the tightening of what EPA is limiting this for, and then also now the prevalence of this in all these different sites, both BWS as well as non-BWS sites.
Well, for us, we have to continue, we're gonna continue doing quarterly and regular testing to to keep track of any changes, especially the changes. Because the proposed standard is so low, any kind of change can be a very significant difference. But the 4 part per trillion standard is only for PFOS and PFOA.
Mhm.
So we are finding PFASs that currently don't have any proposed regulation. So in those cases, we're relying on the Department of Health's environmental action limit to give us some guidance as to how bad is this level. But for those wells that have either or PFOA and PFOS, we're gonna have to monitor those much more closely. If we see the levels start to increase, then we're gonna have to begin the stages of really planning for and preparing treatments. So currently, our Water Resources Division is the lead on PFAS, and they'll be undertaking a treatment study to evaluate, what are the best ways to treat it. Now, in the EPA proposed regulation, they do identify 3 different types of treatments, technologies that you can use to remove PFAS. They all have challenges associated with it. So regardless, we're gonna have to do a treatment study to optimize the conditions because it's site specific. The treatment conditions in one site can be very different from another. And that's really driven by the type of PFAS we're finding and how much we're finding there. So those wells that we're finding a lot of different types of PFAS chemicals, the treatment challenge there will be much greater than those we find only one.
Last question, kind of switching gears. I know there's been this long conversation about, the plume and where the plume can move. And I saw this note in Joyce's report back about the tracer study that Don Thomas and them are going to do. Do you know, where is USGS in all of this? Is that part of the work they're supposed to be doing in terms of figuring out where water is moving? And what do you think the timeline is for us knowing more about how that all works?
Yeah, that's a good question. the USGS is really interested in understanding or doing the groundwater model. The model is going to help us understand where it's going, where this plume's going, what its shape is, and what's happening to it. Any kind of tracer studies or any other type of work that's being proposed under that, what Joyce reported, is going to provide some data, or it's going to provide additional information. But the backbone to that understanding that plume is going to be driven by the groundwater model. And that's where USGS is most interested in, so are we.
Has there been any talk of a timeline for those guys to, I know this, and I know there's been many, many years in the making. Trying to get something that's credible, yeah.
Yeah, you know, that work started off with the 2015 administrative order and consent.
Right.
That work went on pretty well up until 2019, 2020.
Yeah.
It was slow going, but we did have a number of conversations with all the different stakeholders in the Navy and USGS and others. But when that Joint Base Pearl Harbor contamination event happened,
Yeah.
everything came to a stop.
Yeah.
And so there is discussion right now of reconvening the groundwater modeling working group, all the different stakeholders, and starting to get a schedule together to get that work going again. Yeah, because,
Thank you.
yeah.
Erwin, I have a follow-up question for that. So
Sure.
for the groundwater modeling working group, would that be under the Navy, the Commission, DOH? Who's sort of shepherding that, or who should be? I guess I'm asking.
Right now, it's the regulatory agencies, both Department of Health and the EPA is doing it. Prior to when the AOC was, the 2015 administrative order and consent, the agency that was shepherding it was the Navy. And there was a lot of debate about that too. And so after the contamination and with the EPA's, proposed consent order that they put out, there's a shift to move all of that work, and something that we've been advocating for a very long time, move that work really under the regulatory agencies for oversight, because that's where it really belongs.
One more follow-up question to that, Erwin. I'm just wondering, given the Water Commission's interest in all of this and their PIG, what role, if any, do you see them playing, at least with respect to the groundwater modeling working group?
Well, the Water Commission is going to take on a much bigger role. I mean, they were always part of having a seat at the table. And I think with respect to what now with PFAS and now with, where the contamination is, the commission is taking a much greater interest, and they're going to play a bigger role in overseeing that work, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, any more questions? I think I forgot to ask for this one. Madam Secretary, any testifiers or?
Yes, we have wonderful.
Chair Meredith Wilson has been admitted into the room. Meredith Wilson, please turn on your camera and remain on mute until you are recognized by the board chair. At that time, please unmute your microphone, state and spell your first and last name for the record. You will then have 2 minutes to provide your testimony. You'll be given a 1-minute reminder to wrap up your comments.
Hi there.
Hello, Ms. Wilson.
Hi, sorry, I spoke out of turn.
No, go ahead.
My name is Meredith Wilson, MEREDITH WILSON. I think you have a copy of my written statement, but I have a lot of thoughts, but first of all, it's really disheartening that the groundwater monitoring or groundwater monitoring study is not done. Eventually, you'll probably just be able to use people's health records to eventually see what's going on. That'll eventually speak for themselves. Because I already, get people messaging me, like some of my friends saying, "Hey, anyway." I'll save that. I lived in military housing at Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam for 5 years. I loved my temporary island home and was so proud to work within the hospitality and nonprofit sectors there on Oahu. while my husband served there. It was my delight to welcome visitors and make them feel comfortable, but also leave them with a sense of respect for the special place that they may have not gotten otherwise. The Ina, now in many more ways than one, became a teacher to me. I didn't want to learn a lot of things that I've been learning in the past year and a half, like total petroleum hydrocarbons, EALs, PFAS. Believe me, I used to sing in a band on that island. I didn't care about stuff like that. I was busy learning lyrics to songs, not trying to figure out the carbon range breakdown of jet fuel that I ingested and showered in my home that made me feel like a zombie for months on end. I say these things to illustrate that I'm still very connected to what happened to us there. I care just as much for the next military family living in my house as I would for my own. I noticed that the Nakapuna company will conduct 2 separate surveys regarding the repurposing of Red Hill. The first is on an online qualitative survey available to the general public, but the second is going to be a quantitative survey intended for residents in the neighboring areas, plus online for Oahu residents only. The reasoning on the website is explained that the second will build upon the first, but I'm imploring that we who are affected by this water resource be supported in that we're included in all aspects of this process. I wanted to thank specifically Ms. Kathleen Elliott Pahinui, who replied to my last month's questions very thoughtfully and thoroughly in an email included several helpful attachments. Just when I think BWS has fought tooth and nail for the public, I see yet more letters they've written on behalf of the people to protect them, and they've gone unanswered. Specifically on page 13 of a letter written by Manager Lau to the EPA and DOH on October 3rd, 2016. Mr. Lau makes the case to add back a version of antifreeze to the chemicals of potential concern list after the EPA approved the reduced list in February of the same year. He suggested that DOH direct the Navy provide more specific evidence that the chemical has a short half-life, as they stated in prior reasoning to remove it from being monitored. BWS's review of the studies used for this half-life measure represented conditions expected in a sewage treatment plant and not in a subsurface or groundwater environment. The estimated half-life would be double of the other study that they used, which was 2 to 16 days. AKA, it may persist at higher levels for longer. Things like this need to be highlighted and brought out for the public to see. I appreciate that they're in public letters, but they need to be talked about more. You guys do a lot of work in the background and you write a lot of letters, but we need to bring it out and people need to know that you guys work really hard in the trenches, literally. I've just begun to look at some of the other documents, but the more I know, the more I'm disturbed. Did the Department of Health ever ask the Navy to go back and change the chemicals of potential concern list because of this specific finding? Thank you again for all that you guys do. Ola ikapai.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wilson. Members, do you have any questions of the testifier?
Just words of thanks. Chair, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wilson. Best wishes. All right, do we have any more people here to testify?
Mr. Chair, we do have a late registration by Ms. Susan Piccola Davis to provide remote testimony, but she has not yet joined the session. If it pleases the chair, we will let you know if she joins before the regular meeting ends.
Okay, yes, please let us know when Ms. Piccola Davis joins us. This probably will be the first meeting in a long time that she has not testified. If she doesn't show up. All right, in the meantime, I'll let the board members have one more opportunity to ask questions. If not, I'm gonna move to the next item. Okay, I'm hearing none. Thank you very much. Deputy Manager Kawata and Ms. Joyce Lin for the presentation and for the update today.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, moving on. Item number 2 for information. We have the anticipated revisions to the fiscal year 2023 operating and capital improvement program budgets. Chair recognizes Ms. Relin Bayashi.
Hello, thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Okay, so this is our potential or upcoming revision to the fiscal year there's a typo there, 2023 operating capital improvement program budgets. So the fiscal year 2023 budget amendment number 2, this kind of deals with like what we were talking about earlier. We budgeted $26 million for electric power in this current fiscal year for electric power for our water distribution facilities. So this was an 18% increase in the amount budgeted over the prior fiscal year. But our actual expenditures combined with our forecast through June of 2023 is looking more like $34 million will be spent on electric power for water distribution facilities. This is just our forecasting for the bills that we've received to date. And then, so our forecast is at about 34.8, the lower bound at 32 and the upper bound for the forecast at 37. As our board knows, and for the public, we do operate a very large and complex water system. Our shafts, groundwater wells, and source pumps, and treatment facilities, and booster pumps all require electricity to operate. Power is a very large operating cost component. The percentage of electricity costs as compared to the entire budget or entire operating budget in each year continues to go up. It's been around 12% and it's creeping up to maybe close to 16% this year. This is kind of a busy slide, but what you're looking at here is our usage in kilowatt hours in blue, and the cost or how much we're paying per month in orange. And the green line and the red trend line going up is the cost per kilowatt hour that we're paying. So we've been making significant efforts to reduce our consumption via the Energy Savings Performance Contract, but costs continue to rise due to HECO rates for power. So just breaking that kind of busy slide down, this was blue again, how much electricity we're using, and the trend line, you can see it, but it's a slight trend downward. But the amount we pay is what continues to go up. So even though we're using less, we're being charged or being required to pay more. And just some information on our Energy Savings Performance Contract. We began that in 2016, and to date, we've installed 3 megawatts of PV capacity. We also did a number of other energy savings upgrades at our facilities. So power consumption is apparent at all the sites with PV installed. And overall, as you saw, our power consumption is trending downward. But with that even with the reductions in consumption, we've not seen any decrease in the overall cost for electricity due to rising rates. So just as an example, this is a site that has PV installed at YL 550, and you can see the red line indicates when the PV was turned on or when we started getting use from that, and the significant drop in consumption after that point. Another example is our Nu'uanu 405. Same thing, the red line indicates when the PVs were turned on, and you can see the consumption thereafter. Thankfully, though, the board has provided us mechanisms to adjust our funding so long as the total consolidated appropriation remains the same. So we talked a little bit about this earlier, right? How we were dealing with these higher costs. So this kind of goes into like how we are just adjusting to absorb. So when you folks adopted our budget, Resolution 941 2022, that adopted originally the operating and capital improvement program budget, the board does include a reso saying, you know, be it further resolved that the operating fund appropriation may be increased to the extent that any electric power costs causes the board to exceed the cost threshold as specified in our schedule of rates and charges. And we did an amendment, if you recall, to our CIP budget, but this is from the reso that adopted our amended CIP budget. This be it further resolved paragraph just indicates that the manager and chief engineer has the authority to adjust the method of funding, provided though that the total consolidated appropriation of both the operating and capital improvement program budget remains the same. So this proposed amendment that we're showing you today is a direct result of the increase in electric power costs exceeding our cost thresholds, and will allow us to ensure there's sufficient funding available in the operating budget to deal with that. The way that it's making more money available in the operating budget is reducing funding in the capital improvement program budget. So therefore, keeping the total sorry, I jumped ahead. Keeping the total consolidated appropriation the same. So the first item that we propose to reduce on the CIP side is item number 2. This is an operating funded capital improvement project for exploratory wells for the Red Hill contamination. So we, this board budgeted 7.5 million. We propose to reduce that to 3.3 million. And the proposed amount reflects the funding required for the construction of one exploratory well, which was the only one that was able to proceed this year at IAL 497. So that contract has been awarded. The balance of the funding will not be needed because in fiscal year 23, we will not be going out with another exploratory well project. This was the only one we intended to award this year. So the difference in funding here, we propose be reappropriated into the operating budget for electric power. And the other adjustment being made on the CIP side is the board originally adopted a $2 million operating funded project line item for construction management services for BWS construction projects. We're proposing to reduce that slightly. And our justification here, though, is that construction management services are aligned with the timing of construction projects. So we don't foresee the full amount of funding will be required in this current fiscal year. So we propose that the balance be appropriated in the operating budget under electric power. So as I mentioned, we budgeted 26 million in electric power for water distribution facilities. We're taking or will not be spending 5 million on the CIP side to be able to increase the amount of funding on the operating side by $5 million. Between that increase and other belt tightening on the operating side, we believe that will be sufficient to cover the costs in fiscal year 23. So this is kind of the summary. So we had the original budget as adopted. You folks via board action adopted an amendment to the capital improvement program budget back in, I want to say it was September or so. And then this proposed amendment modifies appropriations in the capital improvement program budget and increases appropriations in the operating budget, but still keeping the total appropriation the same at $421 million. That's all I have, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Members, any questions?
I just have maybe 2, but they're kind of related. So you know the slide with the downward trend, that's what's hitting the meters, yeah. So that there's all this other capture via PV that's kind of like offsetting it so you can make the thing go.
Yes, so yes, this is what is being billed to us. So yes, yep,
Right,
what
right.
consumption is registering on our meters.
Are there, now that we're chasing around some federal dollars, do you know if there are any dollars that are programmed to help offset some of this and go more green so we can do more PV?
There are energy savings grants that we're looking at. I don't have any, it's something we're looking into, especially with the bipartisan infrastructure law, or whatever they're calling it now, to increase federal funding in infrastructure projects. We haven't identified anything quite yet to put in an application for, but it's definitely something we're exploring.
And sounds like the bill that you guys put in from the ledge is gonna happen too. So hopefully that helps with some of the
Definitely.
drilling of the exploratory and monitoring wells.
That would definitely help.
Yeah.
Because all of these costs for electricity, I mean, come straight out of our operating fund. So anything we can do to alleviate the burden on the operating funds, very welcome at this time.
Members, any more questions?
I have a question for Ray,
Yes.
Chair. I just wanted to follow up along the lines of what Board Member Anthony's been asking about, item number 2, and I understand we're not going to be able to sink more exploratory wells for Red Hill this fiscal year, but I'm just, given how much we're down, this year already, I mean, just as far as water supply, and then given the information that we're getting about PFAS and other kind of contamination, just wondering, say the appropriation comes through from the ledge, say we're able to get federal support, either for more monitoring wells or for exploratory wells. What's the timeline on CIP as far as bringing things on next year? Because I understand like how complicated that is. I mean, say 10 million dropped in our lap, like how could we turn that around with respect to new source?
Yes, thank you for that question. Okay, so for this year, as Ray mentioned, that we're gonna put in the IEA 497. Okay, the next one is Newtown 550. The design will be finished by the end of this fiscal year. That one will go next fiscal year. If we get that funding from the legislature, then the construction of that well will be under that funding plus 7 monitoring wells that's currently scheduled. That is the available places that we're able to find currently. So we're still going out and looking for other locations to put in the monitor well. There's tremendous amount of site constraints. Many of these places or existing reservoirs are located within highly residential areas. So there's noise concerns. There is, in some cases, encroaching on parks and potentially, taking away a park. So our goal is, or our objective is not to create that kind of burden on the community. So it makes the places much more difficult. We are looking at places much more inland. When we go more inland, which is higher elevation, the wells will be deeper, the cost will be higher. So 2 of the sites we're looking at requires additional space or land acquisition. That one is planned for next year. So as far as exploratory well drilling, we don't see any for at least 2 fiscal years out.
That's sobering. Thank you, Erwin.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Anyone else? Okay, if not, I'm sure we're gonna bring up these issues, especially about the electric power and potential fuel surcharge at the next meeting.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna move to the next agenda item now. We have the recruitment status. Chair recognizes Ms. Michelle Thomas.
Good afternoon, Board Chair and Board members. I'm here to provide you with the recruitment status update report for the second quarter, which is from October 2022 through through December 2022, and then the third quarter, which is for January 2023 through March 2023. For the period of October 2022 through December 2022, we had 26 new hires, 12 promotions, 1 demotion, and 21 separations. For the period of January 2023 through March 2023, we had 18 new hires, 6 promotions, 6 transfers, and 16 separations. In addition to those activities, we had quite a bit of other activities that were going on. And as such, I am here to provide another presentation for you folks regarding all of the other activities that we have had going over the last several months. We continue to interview for many key positions in the agency. This past quarter, we have been able to fill some of the following, among others, several civil and mechanical engineers at various levels, trades apprentices, customer service representatives, collections and credit supervisor, budget program specialist, water data collections clerk, groundskeepers, accountants, assistant program administrator, assistant water treatment workers, and clerical staff at all levels. We have also been successful in promoting some staff members up to the next level positions, among others, including lead pipe fitter, claims management specialist, chemist, or water microbiologists at varying levels, and our senior construction inspectors. This allows the BWS to capitalize on the skills our employees have learned in their positions and opens entry-level or lower-level positions, which are easier to fill. This is the concrete example of our organization's investment in the future of the BWS. When we have been unable to fill internally, we have leveraged targeted advertisements, social media, and other options, and our own employees to get the word out about our opportunities. The Human Resources Office works closely with the Communications Office to develop new messaging and marketing channels. Social media posts have been increased, and employees have been given cards to give out to interested family and friends, and new frequently asked questions section has been put on our website and the BWS job page in order to give members of the public more information about what's available at the BWS. Here you will see some examples of the targeted advertisement and the job announcements that have been posted on our external job search websites, including the American Water Association's national and Hawaii chapters, also other specific industry related organizations, including Brown and Caldwell, Hawaii Jobs on Demand, and iHire Engineering. The City Department of Human Resources also posts on ZipRecruiter, LinkedIn, Glassdoor, and other major search engines. And we've also used a new tactic of providing small business sized cards for our employees to hand out to friends and family as part of our annual employee messaging, in hopes that they may be able to bring other individuals who are good and have interest into working with the Board of Water Supply to our career opportunities. The BWS has also leveraged several social media outlets and used the social media outlets to highlight our career opportunities, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Nextdoor, and YouTube. Among other things, the BWS is also using these sites to provide information on what careers are available, what working at the BWS is like providing a day in the life of the BWS, what we're currently recruiting for, and upcoming recruiting events. Here you see some examples of the posts on the BWS social media websites. In addition to these efforts, we are also partnering with the city to leverage the city's status as a Forbes 2022 Best in State Employer. And we have included this information on our BWS marketing material and messaging that we send out electronically, including on our emails. We have partnerships with the city that also include us participating in booths that are hosted by the city and the community-sponsored job fairs. We've participated in 6 of these job fairs thus far in 2023 and already have several more scheduled later in the year. Specifically in January and April, we participated in the Hawaii Employment Job Fairs, which were sponsored by the city and the Star Advertiser, and were held at the Neil Blaisdell Center. Several UH job fairs have also been targeted for us. We have participated both in a person and in a virtual format, including one focused on careers in engineering, which was in February of 2023, and one focused on information technology careers in March of 2023. We have partnered with the city to participate using their PSC portal, which is for professional service contract employees. Those are non-civil service employees, and those are opportunities for temporary jobs that we have available that we can provide to to applicants who are interested in working with us on a temporary basis. Additionally, we also participate in the city's Po'okela internship program. Typically, the city pays for one intern. However, the BWS pays for more than one intern annually on a general basis in order for us to be able to bring in, new graduates from schools, so that way we can get them into varying different careers at the BWS. Additionally, we have a trades apprentice program, which we partner with the city and the state and labor unions of the United Public Workers and the Hawaii Government Employee Association, or UPW and HGA. We also partner with local schools and other agencies for our student worker program, which provides part-time work opportunities to local students to encourage them to try out opportunities with the BWS. We have an engineering training program, which is in partnership with UH. We have an engineering support tech trainee program, which is in partnership with HCC. And we also had partnerships with the Pacific Business News to participate in a workforce forum and the 10th annual Mentoring Monday event, which was held in February of 2023. Here are some of the postings that were put up regarding our participation in the 2 job fairs in January and April at the Neil Blaisdell Center. These jobs that were featured at these particular job fairs included accountant at various levels, assistant program administrator for a couple of our different programs, civil engineers at varying levels, construction inspector aides, cross-connection control technicians, and customer service representatives at varying levels. In 2022, I actually participated in a focus forum on workforce development hosted by the Pacific Business News. The focus forum was a moderated discussion in which the participants discussed the current challenges experienced by organizations in recruitment and retention and the strategies that organizations are utilizing to recruit and retain the best talent. We highlighted at that workforce forum, and we were highlighted as an employer of choice and were offered a different avenue for marketing our job opportunities and creating connections with local businesses. The article was actually published in the December 2022 Pacific Business News magazine. Additionally, in February, I was able to be fortunate enough to participate in the Pacific Business News's 10th annual Mentoring Monday. This event is held annually in conjunction with 40 other organizations across the United States, in which 40 influential women leaders are selected out of thousands of nominations in Hawaii. And I was fortunately selected to participate in this. It's a mentoring program, which is in a speed coaching style, which allows us to be able to highlight any kind of opportunities that are at the Board of Water Supply, as well as provide mentoring and guidance if people want to come in to apply for positions with us. In May, on the 3rd of May in 2023, the manager and chief engineer will be participating in the Hawaii STEM conference. The conference provides hands-on professional development opportunities for teachers and students and industry networking sessions, among other opportunities for Hawaii's teachers, students, and industry professionals alike. Ernie will be attending on behalf of the BWS with the intent to engage with various different leaders in the educational community in an effort to bring awareness of future career opportunities at the BWS in STEM-related areas and to create a talent pipeline for the future. Additionally, we are exploring opportunities for further engagement with the community through the Hawaii Chamber of Commerce's Hawaii Sector Partnerships Program, which creates strategic alliances between Hawaii organizations in similar industries in an effort to promote collaboration between those organizations, create awareness of careers in those organizations, and tackle industry-wide difficulties, including those in employment and workforce development. And we are exploring other opportunities to make the community aware of our many positive career opportunities available at the BWS, including adding we're hiring messaging and QR codes to our conservation commercials, which I will be able to provide you with an example of shortly. We're also spotlighting careers through our YouTube library and social media. We're leveraging new technologies such as QR codes and potentially AI chatbots in order to be able to provide candidates with more information without having to call into our offices. We are using other venues such as providing information on vehicles and at community events to get the word out that the BWS has opportunities for rewarding and admirable careers. In short, we know we can't do this alone, and we realize that we need to work together with partners and to leverage all resources to ensure that the BWS is able to accomplish its mission to provide clean, sustainable, and affordable water now into the future. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn the presentation over so they can show the commercial for you folks.
Water conservation is her job. And his job. And his job. And their job. But we could use a few more hands. Join our team and let's work together to conserve our island's water. Visit boardofwatersupply.com/jobs.
We'd like to really thank communications working with us on being able to put a lot of these efforts together. We've been very collaborative with our various different divisions and have worked really hard to try to do as many things as we can to get the word out there about our career opportunities, because we do realize that, you know, we can't do this, you know, without having more effort and input from the community and really getting engaged out there. And so that's what our effort has been for the past 6 months, and we will continue to do so moving forward. So at this point, that concludes my presentation, and I'm open for any questions for you folks.
Members, any questions?
Maybe just a comment. And thank you for the detailed report. You got to stick the QR codes on the green trucks. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
We're hiring and the QR code and let them scan it.
We actually are doing, looking into that. There are some limitations due to the fact that we are a unionized environment. We have to, you know, ensure that it's not going to be a concern with our union. So we do need to talk to them about that, but we are exploring that opportunity.
What's working? It's a pretty robust list. What do you feel is anecdotally what's working to attract more throughput of applicants?
Honestly, it's really trying to, you know, determine any of the alternative means of being able to get the word out there to folks. You know, we've been participating in a lot of job fairs over the years, and unfortunately, those aren't always the best way for us to get that information out there. So we do know that we have been getting more interest due to our social media, due to the alternative things that we have been doing in order to attract those new eyes, so to speak, on our opportunities. The big thing that we have noticed recently, at least in my office, and we've worked with communications office, is that folks don't always understand that the Board of Water Supply is not just people in the ground, you know, fixing pipes. We also have accountants, we have scientists, and we have a lot of other folks like customer service representatives and such that are different opportunities that may not just be doing manual labor and trades. And we like to be able to highlight that for others so that they can understand that there may be an opportunity for them that they never thought of.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Members, any more? I've got a quick question.
Sure.
So on as far as the resignations, terminations, other, specifically with respect to resignations. This is different from retirement. What are some of are there general recurring?
So as far as resignations are concerned, I'm not sure if you folks are aware, but there's a phenomenon that's going on right now that was previously referred to as the Great Resignation. It's now become more referred to as the Great Reshuffle. And essentially what it is that there's a lot of individuals these days as a result of the pandemic and new opportunities that have come for flexibility in work-life balance that has had individuals reassess whether or not the opportunities that they're currently in now are, you know, what is best for them long-term. And so we have had quite a few folks who have made determinations that they wanted to go to another employer for some different type of we'll call it a benefit that they're looking for, whether that benefit actually be more compensation, any kind of flexibility in their life, such as, flexibility with their work hours and such, or just being able to balance their personal life with their work life. And so actually, I've been in quite a few discussions with both Ernie as well as Erwin about us, capitalizing on various different flexible opportunities that we may be able to do. For example, we have leveraged telework for quite a few of our employees where the position and the person fits. We're also looking at potentially doing alternative work schedules to be able to make it so that way people will be able to have a little bit better work-life balance. And we're also looking at, different ways and means to be able to conduct our services more efficiently. So that way we can leverage those types of things better. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of discretion when it comes to compensation, which is something that we do have competition for with the private industry. But what we hope to do is create an environment which is inviting and has a culture that gives people a sense of worth. So that way those things can, balance out the things that they may or may not be able to get outside in the private industry.
Thank you.
Is there any success in recruitment from the mainland?
We do have some success in recruitment from the mainland for our much higher level positions. However, for the lower level positions, because we do not offer relocation costs and such, it does become more difficult.
Got it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you very much. All right, next item is item number 4. Chair recognizes Mr. Mark Chun. This is the status update of groundwater levels at all index stations.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the board. My name is Mark Chun, and I will be giving the status update of groundwater levels at all all index stations. 4 of our aquifer index stations were in low groundwater condition for the production month of March 2023. They were at Kaimaki, Pearl City, and Wailua. They're all in caution status, and Punaluu is in alert status. We find that the monthly production average for the month of March 2023 was about 124 million gallons per day. The rainfall index, as we know, though, is for the month of March was 68% of normal, with a 5-month moving average at 92%. We also note that the Hawaii Drought Monitor shows that there's 0 drought conditions across Oahu as of April 4th, but the National Weather Service is forecasting below normal precipitation between May and September 2023. So what we've been seeing is that most of the monitoring wells have exhibited relatively stable head levels, which is sort of a combination that we're seeing of lower overall groundwater production, but at the same time, we're offset somewhat by the low rainfall. But we also want to note that the average monthly production for March 2023 was actually lower than March 2022, and is also lower than the 5-year average. And that's the report. If there are any questions, I'm willing to go ahead and take that.
Members, any questions? Hearing none, thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, we've got one more item that we do have one testifier that's waiting. Item number 5 for information, water main repair report for March 2023. Chair recognizes Mr. Jason Nikai.
Thank you, Board Chair and board members. This is the water main repair report for March 2023. In March, we had a good month. We only saw 17 main breaks, which is lower than usual. That brings the total to 262 for the fiscal year. We're still on track with our usual amount of main breaks at about 350. Here's the 17 main breaks, most of them on the smaller lines, 4 to 12 inches in diameter. And for our leak detection team investigated 35 points of interest and found 35 leaks. To date, they have found 309 leaks for the fiscal year. That concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Members, any questions? If not, thank you very much for the report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
All right, I'd like to recall item number 1 for information. We do have Ms. Picola Davis on the.
Ms. Picola Davis, please turn on your camera and remain on mute until you are recognized by the board chair. At that time, please unmute your microphone and state and spell your first and last name for the record. You will then have 2 minutes to provide your testimony. You'll be given a 1-minute reminder to wrap up your comments.
Good afternoon, Ms. Picola Davis. Our meetings will not be the same without you.
I just lost track of time, or else I would have been there. I just wanted to comment on one of the slides that you put up for the red. It was slide 3, and it had to do with closure and how the Navy is describing it as to defuel, clean, and close in place. And I can remember in the past they used it that closure 1 option was the quickest. But as we've gone through this journey, we also know that that's the quickest way of allowing the Navy to get back into the fuel business if need be in the future. So I just want everybody to keep an eye on what's coming up, where they're mentioning the closure plan supplement 2 and the survey that requested people's inputs about reuse. These are the things that we need to be paying attention to, because as we've learned along the way, sometimes what is said isn't what is done. See you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Aloha.
Picola Davis. You beat the timer today. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, members, any questions for Ms. Picola Davis? If not, thank you very much, Ms. Picola Davis. We'll see you again. All right, that brings us to the end of our regular agenda. May I have a motion? We do have an executive session today. May I have a motion to enter into executive session?
I move.
Second.
Okay, let the record reflect we're back into regular session. There is moved and seconded to adjourn for today. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Is there any opposed? All right, we stand adjourned.
Okay.